According to Stanford researchers, an article from The Economist, more than 20% of heterosexual couples and almost 70% of same-sex couples met online in 2010. Today, according to courts, 40% of American couples met online. When I first read these researches and articles, my initial gut reaction is, so 70% of the chance my future husband are out there swiping, setting up dates with other people without me. Although the mathematical interpretation of these researches was not strictly accurate on my side, what was accurate was that I was surprised, shocked, and even a little bit felt frightened and left out. When I came to college, I became more comfortable about my identity, and I was excited to pick up my game and join the online dating community. Today, I want to share you a love-seeking journey where we'll discover biases, understand challenges, and identify potentials. This conversation is important not only for users who use these dating platforms, but also for all of us to better understand relationship and the way we communicate it. So let's begin. When I first started, I began with what I consider the starter package: Tinder and Grindr. Some of you know what's going on already. Tinder is one of the most popular dating apps across all demographics. It presents you a user profile when at a time, and you can view users' photos and some basic information. You can swipe left to indicate that you're not interested, or right that you like someone. If both people indicate that you like each other, then you're able to have a conversation from there. Grindr works slightly differently. It is predominantly used by gay male these days, and it does not have a matching process. You're presented a list of profiles based on your location. You can also view other people's photos and basic information, and you can simply start a conversation by sending them a message or a photo. Before any particular individual stood out to me, some profiles really caught my attention. And here are a few examples. This one said, "White only, I'm not racist." And this one said, "Looking for masculine between age of 25 and 30, unless you're rich." Or this one says, "Leave me alone. If you're more than one of the above, bottom, 30 plus, etc., etc." It is not uncommon to see these profiles with explicit language talk about their preferences on Grindr. And at the time, it was really confusing to me, as I did not know what these messages meant to me and what it meant to the LGBT plus community. Furthermore, how it represented the online dating community users in general. I could not answer these questions for myself, so I carried them with myself. One day, one conversation really inspired me. I was studying in the atrium of our engineering building, and I overheard a conversation between two women students. One said, "I'm an engineer, so I want to date an engineer." The other woman student said, "Ew." Regardless of her opinion, it's not uncommon for us to hear sentences like this. Sometimes we hear, "I'm religious, so I want someone religious." Or, "I'm tall, so I want someone tall." Or even the opposite, "I'm spontaneous, so I want someone who's more organized." This makes sense. We have an understanding of ourselves. Therefore, when we look for a partner, we have certain expectations. We're looking for qualities and attributes either are similar to those that we have, or those we do not have to compensate certain attributes. However, it becomes problematic when we talk about certain traits. I graduated from college, so I want someone well-educated. I'm from a privileged background, so I want someone well-off. Or I'm a white person, so I want to date someone white. It becomes even more problematic if we phrase it in a way, "I do not want to date a person of color." This conversation really inspired me and reminded me that we all have preferences, and it's totally okay. But sometimes the line between preferences and biases is extremely vague and tricky. Researchers also show that if you're looking into how two American strangers behave in a romantic context, race is still the ultimate confounding factor. Identity matters, and it plays a huge part when we choose partner. However, it is because we all have preferences, and sometimes the line between bias and preference is so vague, it makes the whole communication extremely tricky. But that still does not explain what I call the grinder phenomenon. So I continued to explore. One day, I met this person, and let's call him Joey. Joey is someone whose profile has this explicit language to talk about his preferences. And I had the opportunity to meet with him in person and understand his motivation with these messages mean to him. One of the many, many reasons that he explained to me is because he can. He explained with two specific perspectives. First, whenever a person sets up a dating app profile, users are asked to input all these different informations. And these different informations already automatically label us and group us into different groups. And furthermore, for Grindr specifically, there's this feature called filter, where you're allowed to use to unsee certain users that do not meet your requirement. There are 4 of them that are free, and 9 of them you have to pay for. And these include race, ethnicity, height, body type, etc. And researchers from University of Nebraska-Lincoln did specific research on the psychological impact it does to us. They used an example. Let's imagine there's a gay male attending a gay bar or a pride event. Well, this individual might have preferences and still view everyone that is there with the lenses and filter that he has in his head. What is important is that he must acknowledge that the space is being shared by everyone who is there. He's confronted by everyone who's physically presented there. What Grindr allowed users to do is to ignore and neglect those who are different from us or those who are not in our preference zone. And this reiterates this biased selection process. So now we understand we have preferences, and sometimes it could be biased, and dating apps sometimes seems to facilitate this biased cycle. Does that mean dating apps is bad? No. Researchers also argue that independent platforms provide unparalleled opportunity to connect different social groups. They're here to break down the social barriers. They are awesome. And as we mentioned, 40% of American couples already met online, including me. Dating apps has done something extremely productive for our society, but it still felt off. And there are a few lessons that we can take from here. First, and yet again, we all have preferences, and it's okay to express them. But the line between preferences and bias can be extremely vague. And all of us are subject to different forms of bias, regardless of our sexuality or the type of relationships we're in. That could be our age, socioeconomic status, education, and probably even astrological signs or your Myers-Briggs personality. Dating apps sometimes seems to facilitate this biased process because of inappropriate app design or inappropriate use by the users. But there's so much potential. They help us break down social barriers, and 40% of American couples met online already. Here are some of the things that we can do. For tech companies, they should continue to work on improving their app to provide a safer environment for everyone. Some of the apps are already working on features to help protect the women, to encourage users to look beyond just photos to actually get to know each individual. And even Grindr is trying to launch a kinder version of Grindr. And for us personally, first we must acknowledge we have preferences, and it's okay. And it's also okay for us to express our preferences. But we must be mindful and cautious with our language and action. While our footprint seems less visible online, it has just as much impact online, if not more, than in person. Now that you know more about the challenges and the potentials of dating app, you can provide better advice for your friends who are on them, or swipe on confidently yourself. And next time, if you see someone with a biased profile photo, or if you just do not know how to start a conversation, maybe send them the link of this TED Talk. Thank you.